All right, welcome back here. This week in pro football, let's wrap up the Week 9 show with a Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats. That would be Ray Didinger from Comcast Sportsnet, Comcast Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Daily News, the Bull, and, of course, the author of Finished Business and the Eagles Encyclopedia. Ray, how are you?
I'm good, Pat. How are you doing?
All right, Ray, and thanks a lot for joining me. I know you're impressed with my Deacon Jones jersey, and you wish you had one of your own. But it's not for sale, Ray. I'm sorry. All right.
That's okay. One of the all-time greats. I mean, it
really was.
I don't know how many of your viewers or remember David Deacon Jones, but he was one of the greats. I mean, when they rank the all-time defensive ends, he's got to be in that conversation. I mean,
I think so.
I'd put Reggie number one. I would, but Deacon was he was amazing. I mean, if I had to pick the two defensive ends, it might be Reggie and Deacon.
Yeah,
it might be.
What I would do. I absolutely right. I think that would be two. That would be a pretty formidable bookend for any defensive line. Those two guys. Jones was that good.
Yeah, it's a shame they weren't keeping sacks stat back in Deacon's day. Because I would like to seen. He swears, because I interviewed him about this. He swears that over his career, he would have averaged 20 a year.
Yeah.
And listen, having worked at NFL Films and going through all the footage, I think that's probably about right.
He probably did in the late 60s because that front four earned that nickname. They were something in the late 60s.
They were indeed the fearsome foursome.
Yeah. All right, Ray, let's talk some NFC East here, and we'll start with the home team here. I talked at length with Sal Powell at the outset of this show about whether the Eagles may have, in fact, turned a corner last week in Cincinnati and whether they're starting to get some of that 22 mojo back. What were your observations of that game, and do you think Philadelphia is starting to coalesce again on offense?
I thought that was their best game so far this year. They've now won 3 in a row coming off the bye and gotten progressively better. Cleveland game wasn't very impressive, but they won it. Giants, they won impressively, but beat a bad team.
Right.
This time they won impressively against a team that's not great, but certainly better than the Giants. And I thought they looked really good. I thought they looked really good in pretty much all phases of the game. The offense scored on their last 6 possessions. They had really good balance there between the run and the pass. I thought it was the best game that Hurts had played this year in terms of just looking in command of the offense.
Agreed.
And defensively, they're getting better by the week. I mean, I think one of the really encouraging things here is that 2 straight weeks now, they faced really good receivers, Malik Neighbors and Jamar Chase, and really held them both in check. I mean, and those are 2 guys who can go off and take over a game by themselves. And the Eagles defense did not allow that to happen. So defensively, the team's playing much better. I worry still about the edge rush. I don't know if they're going to have a consistent edge rush week to week. I think it's going to kind of be there some weeks, not others.
Right.
But the thing that's making up for it is the 2 young players in the secondary have made a world of difference. Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean have made an enormous difference in this defense. And so their presence now is really being felt. I think they're sort of getting a feel for the NFL. And more importantly, I think Vic Fangio, as the coach, is getting an appreciation for what these kids can do. And he's being able to utilize them and work them more into his defense. And the overall effect of it is pretty damn good.
And I guess too, Ray, it's another factor that's probably clicking into place is it probably takes close to half a season. You have a new offensive coordinator, you have a new defensive coordinator. And it probably takes that long for players to begin to fully understand what each coach schematically is trying to do, right?
Exactly. And that actually works both ways, Pat. I mean, there's everybody looks at it from the one side that, okay, all these new players or young players, they have to learn the playbook. They have to learn what the coaches want, and they have to learn what's going to be asked of them, which is true. But you also have to look at the other side. And over that same period of time, the coach has to learn what the players can do.
Right.
The players are trying to learn the system, but the coaches have to learn what these players can do before they know what they can ask them to do. And I think that now you've seen, I think Fangio is now getting a sense for what these guys can do. He's utilizing Huff better, certainly, now that he's in a 2-point, and now that he's got his hands on the ground as opposed to standing up where he just looked lost.
Right.
You're getting a lot more out of Nolan Smith. And the two young guys in the secondary, Mitchell and Didinger, are fitting in beautifully. I mean, Mitchell looks to me like already just a perfect fit at the corner. I mean, he can cover pretty much everybody. And Didinger is very useful in multiple roles. I think ultimately his position will probably be safety. I think he can be a great safety.
I agree.
But right now, Vic is using him as a slot defender, as a corner guy, which he seems very comfortable in there. He can cover in the slot. He can cover man-to-man. And with him playing on the slot, he's close enough to the line of scrimmage that if Vic wants to, he can blitz him out of the slot. And Didinger has already shown you that he knows how to get to the quarterback. So he's a multifaceted, multi-purpose player that I think is only going to get better. And it's raised the whole level of the defense. I mean, one of the biggest defensive plays in the game at Cincinnati was the fourth down play, where Burrow swings the ball out to Chase. And I've seen them run that play for years now in short yardage, and they never get stopped. But here you got Didinger, saw it all the way, came in and, made a one-on-one open field tackle on a guy that's not easy to get on the ground.
No, agreed. He's been a revelation. I think Howie, again, kudos to him for those picks. Eagles looking a lot stronger right now. Is there any chance in your mind, Ray, with the Eagles now coming through, and if I may be so bold, a desultory 4-game stretch here against teams that the Eagles are not really that emotionally invested in, even including the Giants? I mean, the Eagles, they just beat the Giants like a drum. I find it hard to believe the Eagles get up to play that team. And then Cleveland, as you mentioned, even Cincinnati. Now it's Jacksonville. Any chance the Eagles might be peaking past Jacksonville, trip to Dallas, then the Commanders come in, then it's the Rams and the Ravens? You think the Eagles will be disciplined enough to focus just on the team in front of them Sunday?
I wonder about that. I do, because we've sure seen it happen where teams, everybody talks about the trap game. I mean, however you want to define it, but it's real. I mean, we see teams in the NFL stumble over games that they should win all the time. I don't know that it's going to matter. I mean, if they have a little bit of a letdown after last week's performance, and they are, as you suggest, maybe looking ahead to what's coming up next, which is obviously a big trip to Dallas, and then a game on a short week against Washington. I mean, could they be thinking about that? Yeah, they could. And maybe look past the Jags a little bit. All possible, human nature being what it is. But I when I look at the Jaguars right now, I don't think it matters. I mean, the way they're playing right now, the way their defense is playing right now. I mean, I think I could see the Eagles maybe getting this. This seems redundant to say. I could see the Eagles getting off to a slow start. Well, like what else is new? I mean, they never scored in the first quarter anyway. But over the course of 4 quarters, there's no way that this offense, with all of these playmakers, is not going to score a bundle on the Jaguars. If you look at them this year, I mean,
I agree.
They've given up 17 touchdown passes, which is the most in the league. In terms of total yardage given up, they're at the bottom. I mean, defensively, they're a very porous team, and I would suspect that the Eagles going into it with those receivers should have a field day against this team. So even if they're a little sleepy coming out of the blocks, I think by the second half they should be able to put this team away.
Okay, talking with Ray Didinger here, the author of the Eagles Encyclopedia, and of course the book Finished Business, which I recommend anybody. Great Christmas gifts from a learned author like this, so please check that out. I have all these authors on, including Sal Powell, so it's great to have you guys on. All right, Ray, let's take a look at the NFC East, the rest of the NFC East, and just give me your comments here as we go through each team. I spoke with Sal about the Commanders, an impressive turnaround by this team at 6-2. They've got a real gem at quarterback. But again, I'm not sold on the Commanders though, Ray, in terms of a real force in the NFC. How much promise do you think this team has in 24 to make a run?
I'm becoming more of a believer now with them. Jaden Daniels is not a revelation to me. I mean, I thought he was a terrific player coming out, and going into the draft, I think you and I might have even been discussing it. I had him ahead of Williams when I was ranking the players on the board and ranking the quarterbacks. Pretty much everybody else had Caleb Williams as number one. I didn't. I like Daniels more. I just thought that he played with to me, Williams there were so many sloppy aspects to his game. I mean, prolific playmaker, no question about that. But the way he handled the ball, the way he carried it in the pocket, he got strip sacked way too much. I mean, there was just a carelessness about the way that he played that bothered me. Whereas Daniels, I thought, was a lot more buttoned up and just showed in clutch situations that he was a guy that would come up with a big play in a big spot. And I felt that would translate. And I thought that Washington got the better player when they got him. And he certainly played to that. And if you look at the stats at this point, I mean, 72% completions and a quarterback efficiency rating of 104. And if you look at, I think one of the things that's really particularly impressive is his fourth quarter stats. Fourth quarter of games, close games, and I've had a bunch of them. As good as those stats are, they actually get better in the fourth quarters. Completion percentage goes up to 78%. Quarterback efficiency rating goes up to 130. He hasn't thrown a quarter interception all year. So, I mean, he has been everything you could have asked for and more. And, if you look at what Washington has been lately, I mean, they're averaging 30 points a game, and that's a lot. I mean, Washington has not averaged 30 points a game for a season since 1991, which was their last Super Bowl year. If you look back at what Washington has been in recent years, I mean, they've been a team that's lucky to average 20 points a game, given their quarterback play.
You and I even have done this numerous times on this show. We've roasted the Cowboys for not having appeared at an NFC title game in 30 years. You just mentioned it, the Commanders, or the then Redskins. They have been dormant as far as a postseason team since the early 90s. And it's nice to see Washington back. But here's one word. Here's why I exercise a note of caution. And that is, there's 6 wins this year: Giants, Bengals, Arizona, Cleveland, Carolina, Chicago. That is not a murderer's row of teams. But that's the teams they put in front of them. So you can't blame Washington for beating them.
No, and I think that what you're seeing with this team, like Dan Quinn's a good coach. I think he's a good coach, and he's a guy that inspires confidence in his players. I mean, he's a guy that took Atlanta to a Super Bowl and almost won it. So I thought he was a good hire. And I look at that team as a young team that is growing and growing in confidence. And a game like last Sunday, that a miracle win like that can really make believers out of a team. A young team that hasn't won in a while. You kind of need a game like that all of a sudden you win by a miracle, and people can say it's a fluke.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
It's a springboard. I mean, I remember, listen, I was there for the original Miracle of the Meadowlands, and there was no bigger fluke than that one. Right. But that convinced that Dick Vermeil team that they could win, and they went on and they made the playoffs that year for the first time. There's something to say about a little of that magic dust that falls out of the sky once in a while. And it seems to have fallen on Washington.
Yeah. Let's look around. I have to detour now to not just the New York Giants, who I've been roasting the whole show for being 1-16 on Monday on primetime games, and just the Giants, Ray, just look completely lost as an organization. But I want you to also comment on their brothers in New York who have managed to go 2-6. The only guy I was joking earlier that not on this show, but I guess Amon Green and Jordy Nelson are on their way to New York too now, if Aaron Rodgers wants them to play. But what's going on with the Jets? Do you see that turning around at all? And what are the Giants going to do with Daniel Jones?
Well, I mean, the old expression, misery loves company. And that's what you got in New York with those two teams. And I don't know that anybody really expected great things from the Giants. I mean, I sure didn't. But there were a lot of people that had very high expectations for the Jets. I mean, there were people that were picking them.
Oh, yeah.
I think the majority of people I talked to picked them as a playoff team.
Yep.
And there were some people that said that they could go to the Super Bowl.
Right.
And, where they are right now, I mean, they're hanging by a thread. And I heard your discussion before I came on about tonight's game against the Texans. Right. And I think you're right. I think it's all kind of on the line there. If they lose this game, I mean, the whole bottom could fall out of this whole season, I think. Now, having said that, I don't think they're going to lose. I mean, I think that, you and I have seen this game before. Everything's on the line, national television, backs to the wall. You're a laughing stock. Your fans have turned on you. And very often this is a game where a team rises up and they play great and they win a game. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it saves the season, but for one night, you kind of have that. Everybody kind of rallies around the cause and they go out and they play really good and they can win. I kind of expect the Jets to have that kind of a game tonight against Houston. I think they're going to win. Now, do I think that that's going to signify, oh boy, here they go from here and they're going to make a run to the postseason? No, I don't see that happening. But I think they know what's at stake tonight, and I expect them to come up with a big effort. The Giants, I don't know that there is any turning around for them. I mean, I just look at that team and I saw what John Mara said a week ago after that performance when they got crushed by the Eagles, and they got crushed, saying, I'm not anticipating any changes. The coach and the general manager, there are guys that we're not anticipating any changes.
Right.
Look, I guess John Mara's heart's in the right place. He doesn't want to put any more pressure on those guys, but that wasn't what the New York fans wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear a vote of confidence, no matter how hollow, for the coach and the general manager with the way this team looks right now. Yeah. Pat, they're averaging 14 points a game. I mean, they can't score. No. And they're, I mean, you look at Daniel Jones. I mean, he's just year 6. I mean, if anything, he's going backwards.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, Ray.
And the loss of Barkley for whatever reasons. I mean, it has totally crippled the offense. They can't run the ball, and before they had Jones, they couldn't pass it.
Amazing how Jones.
Offensively, I don't know right now if there's a worse offense in the league right now. I mean, they're just painful to watch.
And it's amazing how Jones parlayed really one playoff win over Minnesota into that contract. The Giants panicked, and they didn't want to be that team that didn't re-sign a quarterback, so they re-signed him. Or they extended him, and there's some buyer's remorse there. But let me get to the last team here in this division, Ray, which is always fun to talk about, and that is the Dallas Cowboys, who lose again in a game that was not that close in San Francisco last week. The Cowboys now sitting at 3-4. They have a dangerous game Sunday against Atlanta, a game that I'm surprised the spread's only 2.5. Where do you see the Cowboys going at this point in the season?
There are still some people that I talk to that still think this team's going to get it together. That they got too many good players to keep playing like this. They're going to figure it out and they're going to get it together. I'm not so sure. Yeah. I mean, watching them play, I'm not so sure they are going to get it together. I mean, right now they're -8 giveaway takeaway. I mean, there are a lot of different statistics you can point to with the Cowboys that explain a lot of what's going on with that team. But you start with that one, is the -8 giveaway takeaway. And you look at their play in the red zone, they're the worst in the league in red zone offense, and they're the worst in the league in defending inside the red zone. So when you look at those two stats,
other than that, they're pretty strong, right? Come on.
Other than that, they have a lot going for them. Yeah, but I mean, when you look around the league and you watch how games are played and how close most games are, and Eagles-Bengals wasn't like that last week. But you look at the other games, you look down the league and how many of those games are close, and so often they're decided by giveaway takeaway and what you do in the red zone. Are you scoring touchdowns or kicking field goals? And right now the Cowboys are deficient in all of those areas.
Right. And the next 3 weeks, Ray, it's for Dallas. The next 4 weeks is at Atlanta Sunday, home to Philadelphia, home to Houston, at Washington. I think the Cowboys are going to be lucky to split those 4. And if they don't, then you're going to be looking at a team that's going to be 5-7 and basically would have to run the table. I just don't think there's much hope for Dallas. A very, very disappointing season, I think, for Jerry Jones, given the money he's just shelled out for his 2 top offensive players.
Oh, without a doubt. And, and you've seen evidence of it with some of his comments. And, he knows. They sank a lot into this team. They sank a lot into this quarterback, sank a lot into this roster with the thought that they could make a real run at it. And everything has just gone sideways on them. They're the defending division champs, and right now you wouldn't give them a 5% chance of repeating it.
No, certainly would.
So they're and they've had injury issues. DeMarcus Lawrence, who's their best defensive lineman.
Lawrence and Parsons.
He's been hurt. Micah Parsons has been hurt. They've had some injuries, but the problems go beyond just the injury factor. There's just, I think a lot of it has to do, and I frankly was very surprised that Jerry brought back Mike McCarthy after what happened to them in the playoff game. Getting blown out at home in a playoff game by Green Bay. I'm very surprised that he brought McCarthy back to play out the last year of his contract. I thought, listen, I didn't know if he was going to coach the second half of that Green Bay game.
Of the game against Green Bay, right?
Plug on him at halftime.
Yeah.
So the fact that he brought him back for another year, I found very surprising.
Yeah.
But right now, with the way they're floundering around, I don't see them rallying and making a run in the second half. I just don't think they have it. However, having said that, in 2 weeks when the Eagles have to go down there, I don't think it's going to be easy. The Eagles haven't won in Dallas in 6 years. And the Cowboys sort of have the Eagles' number now.
And I think a fair analogy, Ray, is that the Cowboys by next week could be in the same position the Jets are in tonight. And then you get a whole different team, a team that knows its whole season is on the line. And the Eagles reset next week.
Because, you mentioned it a moment ago, and you're right. I think this game with Atlanta is going to be a tough game for the Cowboys, the way they're set up right now. Yeah. They could lose that game. And if that's the case, you're right. A week later, playing at home, a big national spotlight kind of game against the Eagles, that's your ultimate back to the wall kind of game. And you'll probably get a big effort out of them. Yeah. But I just know, regardless of the circumstances, the Eagles going to Dallas over these last few years has never been an easy trip.
Agreed. Going back seemingly forever, Ray. It's not been an easy trip since the mid-'60s, given since I'm wearing this jersey, I could comment on that.
That's true.
But it's true. It's always been a tough spot for Philadelphia. All right, Ray Didinger, what is it? Is there anything you want to plug here? I know that you're not the type to sit back and chip golf balls. Is there anything you're working on that you might want to talk about or you want to plug? What's going on with Ray Didinger?
Let's see. What am I doing? The play that I wrote a while ago, Tommy and Me, about me and Tommy McDonald, the great Eagles receiver, is coming back again. I'm delighted to say. It's going to be at the People's Light Theater in Malvern in January.
Oh, terrific.
So folks that have never seen Tommy and Me and you've heard about it, here's a chance to come see it. If you saw it and you want to see it again in a different theater, here's your opportunity. It will be, I think we open January the 7th, and we play pretty much through the rest of the month of January. So listen, it's a great, if you're looking for Christmas gifts, want to put something in the stocking, tickets to Tommy and Me will do it. So that's coming up in January. And I wrote another book. I wrote a book called Look What the Kid Wrote Today. And that will be coming out next fall. And I wrote another play. So
see, I knew it. I knew you were churning something out. So that's great. What's the play about?
The play is about, it's like Tommy and Me. It's a true story. And it's about hockey.
Oh, okay.
And it's a story that I wrote back in 1971 about a hockey player back when I was just my second year at the Philadelphia Bulletin. I sort of just stumbled upon it, wrote the story then, actually won my first Keystone Press Award for that story. And it's always been sort of rattling around in my brain for 50 plus years now.
Right.
And I always thought that it had the makings of being either a play or a movie. So
Right.
that's a couple of months ago, I finally just said, I'm going to sit down and start trying to do this. And so I sat down and wrote a play called Spinner. Now, I don't know, I don't know if it's ever going to get produced. Right now, a couple of different directors have gotten copies of it and are thinking about it. So I don't know for sure that it's going to make the stage, but maybe it will. But we do know that Tommy and me will be at People's Light in January.
All right. Is the play about a 1971 Flyer?
No, it's about a 1971 Toronto Maple Leaf named Brian Spencer, whose nickname was Spinner.
Oh, yeah, Brian Spencer. I remember Brian Spencer.
Yeah, he was he started his career in Toronto, and then he moved around a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And he was part of that Buffalo Sabre team that the Flyers played in the Stanley Cup Finals when they won their second cup. Spencer was on that team.
All right. Well, that's a great subject. I knew you were up to something. That's great work. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming on tonight, Ray. And I will hopefully you'll agree to come back here at least once or twice more this season. We're getting into the second half now. It's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out and look forward to your input as always. All right.
I always enjoy talking to you, Pat. Always enjoy talking football and look forward to the second half of the year.
All right. Thanks again, Ray. Appreciate it.
Take care, Pat. Bye-bye.
All right. The great Ray Didinger here. Finishing up. Zander was going to want overtime pay for this week. I apologize to him.